Hoy te traigo un invitado de auténtico lujo. Una persona que fue durante 17 años jefe de producto en Netflix. Vamos, el padre de su sistema de recomendación, o lo que es lo mismo, su algoritmo de inteligencia artificial. Y hoy nos lo explicará en detalle. Pero también fue la persona que estaba detrás de muchas decisiones de producción. Hoy te traigo la entrevista que hice a Todd Yellin. Con Todd hablamos de cómo utilizan la inteligencia artificial en Netflix, cómo ve el impacto de la nueva tecnología de inteligencia artificial en el futuro de la industria del cine, analizamos las huelgas recientes de guionistas y actores y además nos explica también su acercamiento a las tecnologías de inteligencia artificial como director de cine, ya que después de dejar Netflix, ahora está trabajando en su segunda película como director. Un lujo de entrevista que pude hacer en el marco del Rain Film Festival, Festival Internacional de Cine e Inteligencia Artificial en Barcelona. ¡Dentro podcast! Pues hoy estoy aquí súper contento de poder traeros a Todd Yellin, que durante 17 años fue jefe de producto en Netflix y que ahora mismo nos viene desde California, está trabajando en su primera película, un thriller de crimen y que por lo tanto nos podrá hablar de muchas cosas, de inteligencia artificial, de algoritmos, de Netflix y de producción cinematográfica. Hi Todd, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. Mi segundo película.
Your
Mi
second.
español es terrible, lo siento, but this is my second movie.
Your second movie.
Yeah, I made, so many years ago, I'm so sorry I'm speaking in English.
You speak in English.
Okay.
You speak in English. No, don't worry.
So many years ago, back in the 1990s, I was a documentarian. I was the first person ever to film Tibetan refugees escaping from Chinese-controlled Tibet over the Himalayan mountains and escape into Nepal, then India. Then I made another one. I snuck footage out of Myanmar, political unrest. Then I made a feature film. I made a small little independent feature in New York about a brother whose brother dies and he comes back, black sheep of family story. 17 years at Netflix. I wanted to make another movie. Netflix was a great roller coaster ride, up and down, up and down. Very exciting. But I left Netflix to make my segundo película.
Your second fictional movie, as I
second
said,
big
and
feature,
some documentaries
Okay.
earlier. That's fantastic. We are going to talk both sides. But first of all, introduce yourself in order to the audience know who you are.
Yeah. Oh, like any person, many things, good, bad, and everything. But for this case, yeah, I have a deep interest in artificial intelligence because even before ChatGPT and OpenAI and the explosion that happened at the end of 2022, we were using AI. First, just AI, not generative AI, but AI for personalization on Netflix, for creating images. We could talk about that after. And then after, we started even using some generative AI and as a filmmaker. So I'm honored to be on this podcast because it's a topic I'm very interested in.
That's fantastic, and as for me, it's such a great pleasure because when you talk about recommendation systems, you think about YouTube and you think about Netflix. That the two main recommendation systems algorithms that you came to your mind. So that will be such a great pleasure to have the person who was behind the design. I thought that of this system. So how this began, how Netflix started to work with artificial intelligence.
So long time ago, before Netflix became an international company, Netflix, and before it was even a streaming company, when I first got to Netflix in January of 2006, we were a DVD company. Remember those old silver discs?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would ship them in the mail in the US. So you'd get your discs in the mail. So we had like every movie and TV show on disc. And with that huge catalog, you'd go to the website to decide what you'd want to order. But there's so much stuff. How are you going to make a decision? In a video store, maybe you have 500 or 1,000 or 2,000, this is a long time ago, DVDs. On Netflix, you can get 50,000, 100,000. So it's really important to put the right titles in front of the right people at the right time. So back then, we had very primitive personalization. We got smarter and smarter, but we knew we would use all the information that the user would give us, and we would use that to put the right titles on top of the user interface so they wouldn't have to look forever and they would keep on finding good movies and TV shows, and thus, for business reasons, keep on subscribing to Netflix so I could put food on my table and a roof over my and my kids and my wife's head.
How that's super interesting, because you said this is before generative AI, because nowadays it seems that it just exists, generative AI, but there are so many other kinds of AI. But it's interesting to see how it's applied in a creative sector, just like Netflix before the AI was generative or creative. How do you manage to use AI in the creative part of recommendation system of Netflix?
Yeah, so first it started out with using AI to what would we know about the user? Well, we knew what DVDs, and eventually we got into streaming. So I'll talk about streaming because that's what Netflix is today. We were there for that revolution. We know what they hit play on. We also know what movies they hit play. They didn't like it. So after 10 minutes, they skipped it. Ooh, that's a negative signal. Then we know stuff that they watched. What did they watch in the morning? What did they watch in the afternoon? What did they watch on their phones? What did they watch on their TV? And so we start getting a smarter and smarter idea. What kinds of movies? Was it an action movie or a romantic comedy or a documentary? So we use all that information to put the right titles in front of them. And the reason is, today, we have no attention spans. No one can pay attention to anything. It's the TikTok generation. It's like we're over here, we're doing 5 things at once. It's crazy. So I'll ask you a question. Let's play a little game here. Someone goes to Netflix. On average, how many titles do you think they'll look at before they go, nah, and they shut off Netflix? Before they...
5.
Okay, 5 would be really small, but I like it. The attention spans are bad, but they're not that bad yet. But they look at, on an average, people will go through those rows and look at 40 titles. 40. But keep in mind, 40 titles, they'll spend on average 2.5 seconds on a title, really looking at the synopsis, maybe looking at that poster art that's there, and then they'll move on. So when you have to stream on Netflix now, and all the services, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Disney, hundreds, and Netflix, thousands and thousands of titles. So out of those thousands of titles, they're only going to look at 40. We better put the right 40 titles on top. Now, the biggest amateur mistake you can make is, say you were a new member on Netflix. What kind of movies do you like?
I like sci-fi movies, crime movies.
So you said sci-fi?
Sci-fi.
Science fiction? Okay.
Yes.
Not surprised coming from the guy who does the artificial intelligence podcast. Okay, so you like sci-fi. You come to the service. You see oh, that's a good sci-fi movie. So you click play and you watch a sci-fi movie. And you go, oh, that was really good. And you watch another one. Now, you're only going to look at 40 movies. I'll tell you the amateur mistake that a lot of companies make. A lot of things, not just entertainment and everything. You like sci-fi. That's all we know about you. So the obvious and bad thing to do is we show you only sci-fi. The first row is action sci-fi, then sci-fi in Spanish, then Hollywood sci-fi, and we show you only science fiction. And what's the problem with that?
That I get tired of sci-fi movies, so I go to another place, I suppose.
And then when I was at Netflix, then we start crying because you quit Netflix and now I can't put a roof over my family's head. It's tragic. So if we only give you sci-fi, that's a mistake. So what we do is, of course, we're going to show you some sci-fi, but we don't know if you like horror. We don't know if you like documentaries. Now, when you think of sci-fi, what are the cousins of sci-fi? Maybe science documentaries. Maybe fantasy is a cousin of that, so we put that. But we don't know if you might have a soft spot in your heart. You like to cry in a movie, romantic, it's sweet. We don't know if you like that or hate that. So we're going to mix in. So a good algorithm, good AI, not generative yet, we'll get to that. Good AI mixes in, exploits the signal you gave us, and the signal you gave us is sci-fi in your case, and also explores and tries other things. And that's a good, smart algorithm, as opposed to getting you into a filter bubble. And a filter bubble, and this is a problem with social media, you like things about right-wing politics or left-wing politics, and they'll only show you that, and you get locked into your little world, and that's bad.
That's absolutely bad. And this algorithm it works just for recommendation, or it works also for what kind of products then you make?
So I think, see if I have your question right. Do we use what we learn to also decide, should we make more science fiction? Should we make more romantic comedies? Is that what you're asking?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Yeah. The data helps. It definitely helps. Definitely, you have to make a decision. With Netflix, I think last year spent $17 billion on content, mostly producing new content and also licensing old content. When you spend $17 billion, you have to make a decision. Out of that $17 billion, first high-level decision, how much should you spend on TV shows? How much should you spend on movies? Then, say if you spend, I'm making this up now, $5 billion on movies. Should you spend $1 billion on science fiction, $500 million on Spanish movies, $1 billion on Korean? Sorry, we'll make Spanish since that's your audience. We'll make $1 billion on Spanish and $500 million on Korean. But you know what I mean? You have to make all those decisions. Of course, you're using a lot of data, but this is the myth. It's not true that any kind of AI is saying, no, make a science fiction movie, but make it about a lovable robot who meets a beautiful female robot and they fall in love and then they have robot babies. That's stupid, but you know what I mean. It's not telling the story. It's just telling what kinds of movies would be smart to make based on the data.
So just the big picture of what.
High level, yeah.
No, that's interesting because that is a recurrent question that maybe in Netflix they work in their scripts or in what they made through the intents or how people interact with the movies, whatever they see the whole movie or they drop in some point.
A little bit, and maybe if we talk about the future of AI, sure, more and more they can have an AI program read a script and give feedback on that script. But that's not, the technology is not there now to be helpful in that way, maybe in the future.
There is a lot of expectations around artificial intelligence. So we're going to demystify some of them, I think, in this podcast. But let's go back to the recommendation systems. How has this evolved? We have just, I think that we are in the top surface. We have in the top titles that are showing.
The next evolution of this is, okay, now we get your taste and we know, hey, you watch science fiction. Now we're seeing, oh, you like horror also? You don't watch any romantic stuff, but you sometimes like political documentaries. So we know what to show you. Not good enough. Because what we learned is if you put the right title in front of the right person, but they've never heard about this title, then why should they click on it? To get people to spend, it takes 0.0032 of 1 calorie, no energy, to press on play on a movie. Phew. And that's my whole life at Netflix. Was I just wanted people to take their little finger and hit play. And it's hard to get them to do that. So the next thing we had to do, and we started going from AI to some generative AI, is we needed to create the right poster art on the website or on your phone, where you'd go to your phone and you see all those rows of images. And in those rows of images, we have to give you the right image. So we started personalizing the images. We started putting not only the right movie, it might be, we both, name a movie you like, anything.
Blade Runner.
Which one? Blade Runner. Oh, Blade Runner, classic. Okay, Blade Runner, for those who don't know it, it's a dark science fiction movie that took place, in the 2020s, but back then, 40 years after it was made. Very dark, kind of a film noir, detective, science fiction movie. We might want to watch it for different reasons. You might love that movie because you love this, the flying cars going through the city and the darkness and the smokiness. I might love it because I just might be a great big Harrison Ford fan. So for you, we should show you the art, and it should look like those buildings from Blade Runner with the flying cars, and that's what you should see in your image. For me, it should be a close-up on Harrison Ford holding a gun or something. Different reason. So we're going to create all those different pieces of art, but that's a lot of art to create. Now you don't only need one poster. We have to create 10, 15, 20 posters for one title. This is where Gen AI comes in. So we started This is once again before ChatGPT and all of that, and DALL-E and all the other programs that people are using, like Midjourney. Before any of that existed, what we started doing at Netflix is we developed computer programs that would help create, or even try to create, poster art. It would look at every single frame of a movie. It would have the idea of sometimes you want a close-up or a two-shot of two people. Sometimes you just want the background scenery. And so we would have that, and it would create all these different pieces of poster art. And we would then use those, and people would get involved afterwards. The Gen AI would do most of the work, but people would then come in and say, oh, that's offensive, or that one doesn't really represent the movie. But most of the work was done by Gen AI. Then we would take those 20-piece poster art, and we'd put them out, and we'd find out, you would get that one with the flying cars, I would get that one of Harrison Ford, and we would personalize the images. Then we started using Gen AI. This is before I left in 2022. We started using it to create the synopses, the summaries, the text that describes the movie. You might like really advertising, jazzy, stuff. I might like just a straight kind of boring description, different people, different synopses. We started even going down the road of creating different trailers, the coming attractions to the movie, the 2-minute or 1-minute video that you see. And so that was the work that we started doing with Gen AI at Netflix.
Everything automatic, fully automatized.
Not fully automatic, because you still need a person to look at it and make the decision and see, like for example, with an image, the bad thing you could do with an image is clickbait. You show something that's super sexy, and it might be, hey, the AI thinks a lot of people are going to click on that. That's really successful. But you realize they're going to click on that, but they're only going to watch like 2 minutes of the movie and go, where's all that sex that you showed me in the art? That was clickbait. So you need a person to look at it after, to do some of the editing, but you don't need as much work on it as you used to.
I think this podcast will be a masterclass about AI, Netflix, and maybe I learned something about how to be a better YouTuber, because many of the things that you are telling, it's resound really nice to me in order to make better thumbnails, for example.
There you go. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So we have now that the correct titles, we have the correct images, we have the correct synopsis, and we have the correct trailer. So we have everything, or there is anything yet to the...
Okay, so now all I've talked about right now is how to promote the movie. What I haven't talked about is how to make the movie. And that's where you get into the brave new world of Gen AI, and where this is where the sexy questions and the doomsday questions come in about, is this the end of art? Is this the end of creativity? I have no moral questions about if someone makes a movie and you want to have AI create the poster, you want AI to create the trailer, you want AI to create the synopsis, go ahead. It's not creating the movie. It gets more interesting when you go, how about if AI, what can AI do to help actually make the movie or TV show? And that's where it's getting interesting today, and that's where a lot of the debate is happening.
And that's fantastic, because the sector is quite hot the last year about this topic. I think it's not just related with artificial intelligence, all the strikes and everything happened, but something is related to artificial intelligence. So what is the whole picture about making a movie, and how artificial intelligence can you aid nowadays to make this movie in order to understand why these strikes and why all this...
Yeah, so let me, you bring up the strike. I'll get into the harder question in a second, but let's talk about, you're talking about the strikes. So, when it comes to the strike, there were 2 strikes going on, you'll remember. There was the writer's strike, and there was the actor's strike. And so both of them were striking at the same time. And they felt, one of the things that was motivating them is they felt very burned the last time they had negotiations. And this feels like a long time ago, but in the early days of streaming, which Netflix was a big part of, it totally changed the industry. Changed how TV shows are made in Hollywood, and used to be that you'd make a lot more episodes, you'd make a lot more seasons, a lot more people involved. And so this doesn't have to do with the AI. streaming technology, they felt like they weren't seeing as much money anymore as they used to before streaming. And they felt like they screwed up because when they were negotiating those contracts, they should have been smarter and they should have negotiated into the future. So this time, when they see AI getting big, they start thinking, we're not going to be burned again. We want to make sure that AI doesn't take over the industry and take away our jobs. So they started, having a lot of negotiations about how much AI can and can't do. And if you're a writer, the writers were a little fearful of two things. A, that an AI would write a script and they would be out of work. Or B, and probably more realistic at this point, a lot of these big companies like Google, like OpenAI, they would use their work that would be used for free from the internet. It would scrape their scripts. I'm a great screenwriter, and now suddenly it's taking I'm Quentin Tarantino, I'm Martin Scorsese, I'm whoever. It's taking the scripts that I wrote or my writing partner wrote, and it's scraping that, and it's helping people write things based on their work, and they're getting no money. So these are the things that were, this is the fight, this is the negotiation, and a lot of times that second category of are people getting paid for all of their data isn't just in entertainment, it's obviously in news. The New York Times in the United States, I don't know what's going here in Europe, but in the United States, the New York Times is suing these companies because all of their news and journalism is being pulled in. So these were things that were debated and grappled with at the last strike. So that was the strike. I'm not going to go into all the details of what they settled. But now, the question I'm more interested in is how much can AI really do creatively to make a movie? And so
let's dig in. You are making your second movie, and I suppose that all you have learned in Netflix, it's more or less apply it to this movie.
So I try to learn, I try to learn a lot of making a better movie from Netflix, but not as much from AI, but I'll tell you my take on what AI can and can't do. Let's start from this. A new technology comes out, and the first time we all looked at it, it seems like magic, and it blows your mind. Immediately, it was funny, ChatGPT came out right the same within 2 weeks of when I left Netflix at the end of 2022. And I was one of the first people to join. I joined immediately. I played with that earlier model, 3.0, that they gave to the public. And I remember the first question I asked it. I said, write a poem about a dog that lives on the sun. Like ridiculous. Like if your English isn't that good and you're listening to the podcast, yes, I did say a dog that lives on the sun. Something ridiculous. And within 3 seconds, and we all know it can do this now, it wrote this pretty good poem. It was like, whoa, it blew my mind. Wow, that's crazy. And so the first time I saw it, it blew my mind. And what I experienced happened, I think, to all of us. When you first start playing around and asking it questions, it's like, wow, I've never seen anything like it. That's the first part. Then you start really needing to work with it. And then you start seeing all the holes, all the flaws, and suddenly the magic isn't so magical anymore. And you know what? The strange thing about technology is the coolness factor, how cool something is, it fades really quickly. And then we just get used to it. And then we expect more of it. So I started having that end of the coolness factor and now looking at it like, I can't do everything. When I was working on the script last year, I was working with my writing partner, Ivan. We were working on our crime thriller. And of course, he writes we split up the scenes. We come up with the story together, and then we assign, you write this scene, I'll write this scene, and we split it up. So I'm working at home, I'm working on my scene, and you get lazy. Can the computer do the work? How could you not? It's like the biblical story of the apple of wisdom sitting on that tree, and it's like, should I take a bite? The snake is telling me, it's like, should I go to ChatGPT and go, write a scene that takes place in Costa Rica in 2010, that's when my movie takes place, and make it one character's name is Felipe, the other, this is all true. And I would go I would describe everything on the scene, and I go, write it. It's like, and I wanted to. get me a glass of lemonade. I want to put my feet up on the desk, on the coffee table, and let the computer do all the work. So I would do that. And of course, you know what I'm going to say about this. I would read it, and everything was like, if it was the first time I did it, it seemed like, wow, that's really good. Like the dog who lives on the sun. But after looking at it a little bit, I go, that's very cliched. It's typical. This is nothing interesting about this. It's good enough, but it's not good. It's not good enough to be a movie that people are going to spend millions of dollars to make, and people are going to spend, $10 American to go see that movie, or $15. So it's not good enough. So it is not good at actually writing scenes unless, you know how there's movies, especially like Christmas movies, that are so formulaic, that are so like, these, you could predict what's going to happen, this scene, this scene, this scene. For those kinds of things, it can come really close to maybe writing those things. But if you look at how much those people are paid to write those movies, they're paid very little. And you know what? By the time you figure out all the prompts to get it out of the AI, you might as well just pay that person that money. What it's good for in writing is brainstorming. So this is what's AI. We all know that it has a lot of, I'm sure you've talked about this on the podcast, the mirages, the illusions it has. And it's like, it makes stuff up. It will make up articles that don't exist. It will make,
exactly.
So it does that all the time. So it's not, when it comes to creating something factual, problematic. Were you going to say something?
No, you are the second people that I interview that says exactly the same. That ChatGPT, it's fantastic for brainstorming.
Yeah.
It was a totally different sector. Well, some kind related to the movies through. It was David Scott Lewis, the man who inspired War Games.
Oh, cool.
So he said that it's for brainstorming, but brainstorming new projects and in companies and enterprises. And it's the second one that says exactly the same. It's fantastic for brainstorming, and I totally agree with both.
Totally. So this is how I started using it. I started using it like, I need in my movie, there's going to be a fight between this character and this character. It's going to be out in the rainforest, and it's going to be there. Give me 10 interesting ways where he can use a weapon that you wouldn't think about. And it would have like mostly stupid, just like brainstorming when you have Post-its on the wall. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Wait a second, that's not bad. Maybe. And that's where brainstorming, because it's not accurate. It's not even that, creative, but it's good at volume. It's so fast, and it's pulling from everything. And if you get good at the art of prompts, of putting things in, you can get some interesting things to get your creative juices flowing to, so that it's good for. And it's also good for obvious things like correcting all your grammar, cleaning it up. But we've had programs that do that forever.
Exactly. See, it's not the new point.
And it's also good at obviously summarizing things. And like,
Sam Altman said that it's the main use for ChatGPT. People asking for summaries of anything.
Totally. But don't 100% trust it. Be careful what you do. But it's good for, like, for example, when I'm doing my research for my Costa Rican crime thriller movie, I'll want to understand about, back in 2010, can you please explain to me how, my movie's about fraud and scamming. Can you please explain to me 10 different ways or 5 different ways where people were using telephone scams that were most popular? Boom, 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 boom. And it's summarized, 5 bullet points, done. And since it's a fictional movie, I don't have to worry. I'm not writing an academic thesis or a newspaper article. It doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. That's good enough.
That's fantastic. So the first place where you can use generative AI is the script. The next one,
So the next one is, okay, you can use it for brainstorming. You can't write a script unless it's a really bad Christmas movie or a really formulaic action or romantic comedy. It's not writing a good script that people will want to pay $15 to see or $10. But it's helping in the brainstorming. The next step is, now you got your script written. Now you have to visualize your movie. This is a stage I'm actually working on now with somebody. Visualize what your shot's looking at. And I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be really good at helping you using DALL-E or Midjourney at creating storyboards for you? And just for your audience knows what storyboards are, it's like, you ever read a comic book or a graphic novel, it's taking a movie and taking the different shots that you're going to shoot, close up, long shot, two shot, and now it's just like putting that all like a comic book almost. So when you get to the set, it's really expensive and you know exactly what you want to shoot. So you might think it's really good at storyboarding. So I live in Silicon Valley, and I have a good friend of mine lives in Los Angeles, and he writes screenplays. He said they just wrote actually a science fiction thriller, and he showed me these incredible storyboards. And for this movie that they were just raising the financing for, I was like, oh my God, this is when I was still writing my script. I go, Midjourney did that? And they said, make this actor look like this famous person and this one. It not only created all these images, but it did it. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to get to that stage. So I got up to it. He told me, just use Midjourney. Don't use DALL-E. Midjourney's better for this. So I went in, I started using it, and it would do an image, and it was like, I don't like that much. It's close, but it's not quite. And I would try to give it some direction, some corrections. Terrible at that. And then I tried to get what I wanted, and it was like I spent all like 8, 10, 12 hours. I couldn't get even close to what he was showing me. So I call up Gary, that's his name in LA. I go, Gary, you gotta help me. I can't get it to do what you got it to do. And he goes, Todd, here's the story. When I told you that it was all created by AI, that's just something that we've been telling people because we thought that would be sexier and people would look at our storyboards and take them more seriously. We hired an artist. It was Midjourney helped us a little bit, but most of it was done by an artist. And I go, now you tell me, oh my God, if I had any hair left on my head, I'd be ripping it out. I mean, it's like, what? What is that? So I have created some images using AI, some conceptual images, but it does not do a good job of taking art direction when it comes to images. And you probably, I don't know if you've experienced this with images.
We experience almost every day when we make the thumbnails that it's almost just as simple that put my face in some generic image of me as a cyborg. And this is just as simple as this. And sometimes it takes like an hour to find the position, the concept, the mood that you want for the image. And you say, well, I don't know how to draw, so it's better that don't having the tool. But if I know how to modify at least other images, maybe I will go faster with using no artificial intelligence. But at least I can generate image without knowing how to draw. That's some point.
It starts you out. It's a good start. And you can use some tools like Stable Diffusion or something, and you do some editing on your images manually and some AI. But when you get to the next level of you're making a movie, it's been helpful pitching the movie when I show it to like potential financiers of some images I create. But creating actual storyboards, I have a storyboard artist. She's not using any AI, and we're just working together on it. So it's not there yet, but it's getting closer. And I know it's going to get smarter at it doesn't take direction well. I'll say, for this office that we want to create, we want a ping pong table near the desks. So I explained, please add the ping pong table. And it tells me in text, we've added the ping pong table. There's no ping pong table. What? It's like delusional.
Well, it's evolving quite fast because now in the Stable Diffusion environment, there is a bunch of tools where you can put attention mask and make multi-prompting and these kind of things that helps you a lot to create an image with so much control than before. But it's quite a lot technical than just putting a prompt in Midjourney.
That's right. You have to learn it's a good tool, but you have to learn how to use it, and it's not entirely there yet, and it takes a lot of work. So it's very finicky, but it's getting better.
It's maybe useful if you have to create a bunch of really similar images where once you have set up all the technology, the models, the prompts, then I have to create 50 similar images. Then maybe it's okay. But if you don't have to do these kind of things, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, no, that's right. So then the next question comes up. How about creating video? So we all know that OpenAI had their big demo that they came out with, I think it was in February, like 4 months ago. And with Sora, they showed like, oh my God, it creates that Japanese woman walking down the snowy street, or the old American West with an aerial shot going through. And they're pretty cool looking shots, and people go like, oh my God, this is the end of humans having to make films. The AI is gonna do everything. And when I see that, and I've talked to people and I've seen demonstrations of it, I'm skeptical. You know, it's still only in beta. They're letting some filmmakers play with it and other people. It will come out to the public. They haven't announced it yet, but soon. I think they've said by the end of this year.
I think Adobe announced that it will be in Premiere alongside with Runway and Pika. They put Sora in the promo, so I assume that at the end of the year should be.
We'll see it. And then people they take that. This is like what we were talking about before when it comes to, you take that poem about the dog on the sun and suddenly you think you create all this magic and then you start hitting walls. Video is going to be the same thing. Video is so much more complicated. Text to image is a huge step. A single image to a video image, that's a much bigger step. It's not, this is the analogy I would give it. When I think of AI, I think of, what if you have a baby who's born into this world and the baby magically has all the knowledge you can imagine in its head. It's born that way, but some of it is fake, some of it is true, some of it is propaganda, some of it is like, it's just a mess of things. But that baby has no point of view, no experience, no understanding of what's true and what's not true. So basically, without any of that, it's a mess because it doesn't have a focus. What makes something a good movie is a movie has a point of view. It's based on experience that we can relate with. It has some kind of uniqueness to it, something special about it. So you have this baby who's gonna now, you're curious, what is it gonna make for you? And it's gonna be interesting somewhat, and it will be really good. Like tonight, I'm gonna go to the festival I'm at here in Barcelona. I'm gonna see the 10 AI shorts, and they're gonna be interesting and cool and weird looking, but they're gonna be short films. They're not either, if a human got heavily involved in, I don't know yet, I haven't seen them yet. If a human got heavily involved in post-production, they might be coherent stories, or they're just gonna be abstract and interesting and weird and cool, but they're not gonna be, it depends on how much of a fingerprint. So right now we are far away, really far away from AI creating a movie, but we're closer and closer to AI doing magical, wonderful things to make it easier, especially in animation. It's gonna take, maybe Jeffrey Katzenberg, the famous guy from DreamWorks, said that if you needed 400 people to make an animated film, now maybe you'll need 50. That's great.
Yeah, I have a known of me that is now in Japan working in trying to make anime with artificial intelligence to aid them, and he says it's not to replace them, it's just to need less people to do the same work.
Which is kind of replacing them, but that's okay. It's replacing it's not replacing all human beings. It is going to cost jobs.
Yeah, it's going to cost jobs, but maybe it will increase the demand of content. That's the other.
That's the positive side.
That's the positive side. With the job replacement, I'm a little bit skeptical of what really gonna happen. I think if this technology really can replace a huge amount of people, it will be a disaster. But it just can replace a little part. Maybe the reduce of cost will compensate a little bit.
Yeah, what I'm fond of saying about AI, and this isn't just about entertainment, is in movies, because I'm a movie guy, a lot of people bring up Terminator and they go, it's like Skynet and it's like the AI is going to get its own intelligence and it's going to take over the world. I think a much better, more predictive movie isn't Terminator, it's WALL-E.
I was thinking exactly the same movie at this point.
You remember what happens at the end, what happens in WALL-E?
Exactly, yeah.
It takes everyone's job. It makes everyone like, they can do whatever they want, but what do they want to do? Everyone gets obese. They're sitting there with these huge drinks. They can't do anything. They're useless at that point because the AI is doing everything for them. And so what is the point of living if you can't produce and do things? So it's a kind of a stranger kind of dystopia and nightmare than something like Skynet.
Maybe it's worse, even.
Could be. Could be.
And we have talked about the things where artificial intelligence is not really yet there. But there are points where, maybe not the creative points, but in the production or in other phases of creating a movie, that artificial intelligence is more helpful than generative AI.
Yeah, like you were just saying, your friends in Japan, anime. In all animation, it is. I mean, to get AI to give it the idea of your character and to create how you want your character to be and so forth. And just like the brainstorming can give you ideas. I know a guy who made a nice, fun, short movie using AI to create these little monsters in the forest. And he was able to go, now give it glasses, now give it crazier glasses, now make it look like a weasel mixed with a giraffe. No, now I want a little elephant in it. And you can do it, and it's like you're still a humans coming up with this, but suddenly you're in the kitchen and you're a chef, and I sprinkle a little of this, and you play with the AI, and you can do really interesting things with the brainstorming and animation. And then after you've created your characters, you can now put them in a landscape. Now you can, like, things that took a lot more work of a lot more people, you can have the AI, like, now have him walk across to a supermarket, now have him create the animation to do it from the back of his head and the front. It's amazing.
How do you think it will change the industry, the fact that it will be easier? At least that's what we supposed to make movies. It will help new creators, it wouldn't help new creators, it will generate so much content that maybe the authority of the content will be diluted.
This is the democratization of filmmaking has been going on for years. Early movies, back in the days of when they first had the first sound movies, they had these giant cameras with these blimps that were super expensive and only the biggest studios could afford them. Then suddenly people, 20, 30 years later, they had home movies that they can make with little films, Super 8 cameras and so forth. Then video was invented. Then you had VHS that every father and mother at their kids' play or a baseball or, football game they would have and film them and everything like that. And now everyone, had the tools to make it. But still, Hollywood got bigger and bigger, and they had to we were going to make huge space soap operas and explosions, and we were going to do bigger and bigger things. But even that gets cheaper and cheaper, and people could create more and more. They've made feature films, you know this, on Netflix. We had movies made on a phone. Sean Baker, exactly. Sean Baker made a movie with the phone. He shot the whole movie. I saw the movie. Have you seen it?
I've seen. I think he filmed just one.
He did one. I think Tangerine was the movie.
Tangerine was the first. I don't know if
other people have made it. I forgot. There's other filmmakers.
Soderbergh made two of them.
Soderbergh did it. That's right.
One is about a draft day of NBA. I remember.
I saw that
another one. It's like a paranoid thriller or psychological thriller that this I haven't seen, but
I've seen them both.
Yeah.
And so of course, and Steven Soderbergh shoots so quickly. So that's a democratization. You don't have to be Steven Soderbergh to use your phone to make a movie. Anyone could. And Sean Baker wasn't as well known then when he made Tangerine as he is now. So now you're taking it to the next step when you're saying, doesn't AI democratize it even more? Where any kid in their basement, this is the dream, can make a big science fiction or a big action movie with these giant explosions and so forth. More and more that is true. And they're going to start understanding and having more access to it. And already the amount of content has exploded and it will continue to explode. And when you were talking about personalization, you mentioned Netflix, you mentioned YouTube, but you didn't mention the number one place that does personalization.
Which one?
TikTok.
TikTok, of course.
Because at Netflix, I was envious of TikTok was just starting out when I was there, but I was envious of TikTok, not because I like TikTok, not because I have 2 kids and they're addicted to TikTok, they are, but it's because TikTok, it's all about the signal. When you're watching something on TikTok, You watch it for like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, you skip to the next one, you show all these videos. They get a tremendous amount of data in an hour. They get more data in an hour. It would take us 3 months to get that many things that they'd watch on Netflix to understand. So the TikTok algorithms, it's all about how much data is coming in. So they're amazing at it. And TikTok is the ultimate democratization of film. YouTube was first there. So you got to give YouTube even more credit than TikTok. But YouTube and TikTok and user-generated content, more and more they have the platform. They have their phones, they have whatever. Now they're going to have AI to make them even better and bigger. And you're right.
In fact,
explosion.
The competitor of TikTok has released the Chinese soda, Kling. It's from the competition of TikTok. So in China, at least, they have something that can start to explore the possibilities. You mentioned TikTok, and I automatically thought about the formats of the media. We are talking about movies, essentially movie, TV shows, etc. But do you think that the technology will change the kind of media we consume, entertainment media? Will replace this long format of movie, in fact, or maybe we will have new experiences, and the industry is moving towards that, or it's still in the classic movie format?
That's a deep question. That's something we thought about. We talked about a lot when I was at Netflix. We'd have executive meetings and we'd brainstorm about this topic, which is, how are people spending their time? Where are they getting the most enjoyment? And what's happening to attention spans? So there was a time, maybe 150 years ago, where a very popular art form was opera. People were loving the opera, and the opera wasn't just for people, elderly people who have a lot of money and have a lot of pretension. It was like regular people going to the opera. That's the way it was. And now it's this specialized, I don't like the opera, I wasn't raised with the opera. It's this specialized, strange little form of art. And the question is that the future of movies? Is the 2-hour movie going to be like, sure, they're not going to go away, but it will be who has the attention span? Some people, but most are they just want to scroll through their phone and watch short. The question is that like the whole society is having a shorter attention span and it's hard for them to watch a whole movie or a TV show and they want shorter form? Or is it when you're younger, that's what you do, but as you get older, you calm down a little bit and you're willing to watch long form? I'm not sure, but that is a big question facing all of the filmmaking community.
What do you think it may be the main reason? Because the attention span, it's obvious that it's there, but don't you think that things that the small screens where we consume a lot of content has been damaged for the experience we have viewing movies? I think it's not the same go to the theater and experiencing a great movie that consume it through a little screen.
But now Apple comes out with, now you can like be immersed in it and you're sitting there and you're, in your own little world and you feel like you're on a big screen, even though you're getting this virtually through wearing a pair of glasses or something. So I don't know where that's going to take it either, as things get more and more into a virtual world and people start watching things in their own little thing, and I'm not even next to it. Sorry.
But when you think it's just the point, it's naturally the conversation goes exactly where I hope to go. Apple Vision, you just don't need a screen, a virtual screen, a virtual DOSD screen. You need a new form of media. You can experience with 3D, with environments, with interactivity. That's the point. The industry goes there to these new kinds of entertainment, or it's focused on the visual narrative?
Like I said, I don't know if movies are going to go the same way as the opera, or is it going to adapt and change? We played with stuff. I mean, one project I did at Netflix that I led the project was we started playing with early interactive content. So the biggest achievement is, my favorite show when I was at Netflix was Black Mirror. And so I love Black Mirror, and I said, hey, we're making Black Mirror episodes. I want to meet Charlie Brooker. Charlie is the guy who created it and wrote most of the episodes. Still does. He's British. So he came to LA one time. I had a meeting with Charlie. I said, Charlie, let's do an interactive episode of Black Mirror. Let's stay with the times. Things are changing. Let's experiment. Let's have users have more control. So we made one Black Mirror movie called Bandersnatch, where people, and it's primitive. The technology compared to where it's going is primitive, but at least the user had more of a choice of, do they want to do this or that? Should the character kill his father or not? Should the character, drink a Coke or a Pepsi? It wasn't, we had all these choices, and they would affect. It's like the butterfly effect. You do this little thing and it totally affects it in a big way. So we played with that. So the question is, do movies and TV shows get more interactive, and do video games? And we started video games in Netflix, but that's over here, and it's a small part of the business. But do they start becoming more interactive or not? Not sure. But another thing I was looking into, people always asked me in Netflix, when are you guys going to do stuff with virtual reality? And I would go, I would constantly look, because I live in Silicon Valley. I get to see all the latest technology. And I would see movies made in virtual reality. And there was a big problem with that, and that's why they haven't taken off yet. A movie is all about a director and everyone else doing it, telling you where to look. Close up, long shot, I'm looking at this character and this character. When I'm in a virtual world, it's like, how do you create something in that world and keep it interesting if I decide to look over there, or over there? And say if all the interesting things are happening back there, how do I cue them? Sure, I can use sound, and the sound is in, 3 dimensions too, so I can realize, a car crash, and I have to look back and switch and look in the other direction. And so that is a possibility, but to tell that story, virtual reality is a different kind of medium. And so to use what we've done for many years, for 130 years in movies, it doesn't really kind of work for virtual reality. You have to come up with a new language, and it's a new medium. So it's not the same thing, and you can't and I don't know how well it will work or won't work. And look at Mark Zuckerberg. He changed the name of his whole frickin' company. One of the biggest companies in the world, he changed it from Facebook to Meta because he took all his chips and he shoved them into the middle of the table, and he said, it's all gonna be about the metaverse, and we're all gonna have our avatars and exist there. And now he's starting to pull back a little bit of that, and he's putting more and more money into AI and less into the metaverse.
Well, I think that he believes in the depth that AI will boost the metaverse experience, all the nerve technology in order to create 3D environments, yes, all the chatbots and non real persons to talk with them. This is also artificial intelligence. I think that in his head, artificial intelligence is the leverage to.
I think that's a story that Mark Zuckerberg tells, and now it makes sense what you just said. But that being said, when you bet on technology, no matter how many billions of dollars you have, whether you're a startup in your garage and you have hardly any money, or whether you're Mark Zuckerberg or you're at Meta or Amazon or Apple or all these giants of technology, you still have a finite amount of resources, and you still have to decide where are you going to place your bets. And so, like I said, he was putting all these chips into one thing, and now he's spreading it a little bit and moving over here. And sure, they could go together eventually. But I always said at Netflix when I was running product, for us, I didn't want to be 2 or 3 steps ahead. I wanted to be a half a step ahead. I wanted what we were working on to be practical for consumers and help, the company within the next 6 months or 2 years or 1 year. And we couldn't afford to be betting on in 10 years it's going to be valuable, so we're moving all the chips into this.
I think that the metaverse, the biggest problems that it has, it's really hard to solve. It's just the interface, right, the glasses. It's you put this on your head and you eventually notice them, or they wait, or they kind of lose the marearse in Spanish. That it's some kind of not comfortable to wear this kind of devices.
That's why Apple is trying to, with Apple, they're trying to do better with that, and eventually they'll get better and better. But you're right. It's clunky. Sometimes it makes you nauseous, motion sickness.
Exactly. I don't know how will they solve it, because when we have this kind of experiences, it's nice. It's we like it, but I don't imagine me using it every day. It's just one day, just as you go to IMAX. Okay, it's a nice experience, but it's not for everyday experience. That's
This is magical. This just turned up. Wow. Talking about magic, it's even better than a dog on the sun.
So, well, we have talked about many topics. We have forgotten about anything of production. We talk about new kinds of cinema.
Well,
we talk about Netflix algorithm.
If we cover everything now, next time I'm in Barcelona, you won't invite me back. So we have to leave the audience wanting more.
If you are anytime close in Barcelona, just tell me, because I think it has been a really, really good podcast. I don't really know. I think we have almost. Oh no! Yes.
Oh, whoa.
That's the magic.
One more from the magic notebook. What do we got?
Yeah, about the technologies, not general use technologies, about the technology in production that are used in the industry, all about related with deepfakes and this CGI. What is the state of the art of artificial intelligence in this kind of post-production?
Yeah, it's interesting because in some ways, some of it is AI, some of it isn't. So, for example, when it comes to cinematography, the thing that takes the longest on a movie set, and a movie set is an expensive place to be. When you're in post-production, you have fewer people, but when you're actually shooting, you have an army of people. And what that means is you have a loud ticking clock. Every hour you spend is a fortune because you have all this army of people. So you want to cut time. And the thing that takes the most time is lighting and setting up a shot. Getting that light perfect to match, now we're shooting this, now we're shooting back here, now we're shooting above. It takes forever. So one of the ideas and the promises is, why don't you do all that in post-production? Because being on a set, it's so expensive. So why shoot anything in a cool way? Why create the shadow on your face on the set and getting that shadow beautiful and perfect? Why not shoot everything with the flattest light possible, and then you could do all the real cinematography in post-production? You shade this, you do this. Why do we even light it so carefully? And so is it evolving towards that? And if it does evolve towards that, AI will play more and more of a role in that because you'll be smarter. Hey, I want this to look like a much more shadowy kind of film noirish. No, I want this to look like a comedy. I want the lighting to be flatter. I want this. And if you just shoot it in a very neutral way, but still, the industry's not, it's doing a little of that, and it's fixing things in post-production and color, getting the colors right and everything, but they still spend so much time on a set. So I wonder about, is that just more inertia? That's the way we're used to working, and it will change towards that. So AI will have a big effect on that, and I think it's going to evolve in that direction, but it's not there yet, but it will get there. And then when you go further, when you talk about deep fakes and, can we just have, I forgot I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I've seen most of the movies, but that Star Wars movie about 10 years ago where they brought the guy back from the dead.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the spin-off movie.
One of there's many Star Wars spin-off movies, but one of the sequels, they bring back a guy from like the 1977 movie, and I was like,
and Leia. Leia also was.
Oh yeah, they did it with her later, but they first did it with that guy 10 years ago, and then they did it more recently, like 5 years ago with Princess Leia. I was like, okay, that's crazy. Why not just, when I'm casting a movie, why do I even have to cast people who are alive? Maybe I should just say, I want Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart in my movie, and I'll shoot it today, and I'll get them. That would be a lot of work, and that'd be super expensive, and why should you do that? But actors, that's why we go back to the strikes you brought up. That's why the actors are sweating about this, and they're concerned. So, yes, you can do much cooler things nowadays, and we all know it, by creating, monsters and, creatures and imaginary friends and whatever they're going to put in front of you. Doing the actors, you can fix things in post-production. More and more, what we were doing at Netflix, many are doing is, we make a movie in English, but we want to have Emma Stone, Ryan Gosling, whoever in the movie. So why should we have them speaking with their lips dubbed into Spanish with their lips out of sync? Why can't we make it in Emma Stone's voice, and it sounds like Emma Stone, and it's her performance, and she's speaking Spanish, even if she doesn't speak Spanish, and her lips are perfectly in sync. And more, we're coming close to that. And it becomes less of a question now of, can the technology do it, which we're close and it can, and more about legally, how do we feel about that Spanish dubbing artist who spends their whole career dubbing Ryan Gosling, and that's what they do professionally, and now they're out of work, and now there's unions, and now there's legal challenges. And does Emma Stone really want you to play with her lips, or Ryan Gosling, so their lips match the Spanish words and you've played with her performance? And now you go deep fake into her emotions, and now she's speaking that whole part that she did in English and Spanish, or Korean, or pick your language. It gets strange. So that kind of thing, I think, makes movie making more global, more accessible, and better. And I think that's coming really soon. But to create whole performances from synthetic actors, not synthetic like the Golem or something like that, or Godzilla, but a synthetic just guy sitting in a cafe drinking a cup of coffee. People are playing with that, but there's a lot of legal and union things more against that than the technology, and that will be an interesting struggle.
In terms of legal, do you think that in order to avoid this, maybe at some point some company thinks about create a synthetic actor, a full synthetic actor, and build him a career just like are appearing digital influencers? Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, we know it's happening in a superficial way, and I know you know this, with like they created, I don't know, was it in Japan or Korea, where they created some model and she became really famous, and it turns out she wasn't even a real person, she was just a fake model. Now this was just in still photography of her selling some product, and she was a model. But more and more, we're seeing that. People are playing with that now, we know that. And yeah, you will see a synthetic, I love that actor or actress, and they're not even a real person. That's gonna happen. That's gonna be really strange. That could be a Black Mirror episode. Yeah, totally.
In fact, more or less, one of the last season was more or less something like that. Something that
Which
they
episode?
still.
I've seen all the episodes. Was there an episode that did that?
No, Jennifer Lopez. No, Jennifer Lopez. So
which one?
no, Jennifer Lopez wasn't in an episode. I don't remember the actress. The one where. Some people is stealing his history, and it was made by an actress, and the actress had sold.
Oh yeah, that was the last season. They did do that. That's right. They did, yeah, and they already did an episode like that. That's right. It was in the most recent episodes. I saw.
I will remember Black Mirror, and I said some of the Black Mirror episodes, especially the older ones, maybe.
Yeah.
The technology, the history is no, but the technology maybe
close.
it's yet.
It is.
It's here.
We'll be seeing it. I don't know how I feel about it, but look, it's inevitable. So get used to it.
I'm glad, because I know some CC people that you say that maybe they will have more work than less in the short time, because they are thinking more about replacing the lighting and the physical stuff. So someone has to replace then the light than not replacing his work, his post-production work.
That's right.
That's
right. It'll be interesting. So that's synthetic actors. I don't know, but my 17-year-old son wants to be an actor, and he acts. So I don't know whether to discourage him, which I'm not. I'm encouraging him, but I don't know where it's going to happen there.
Well, when we talk in this kind of podcast, in these conversations about technology and future, I think that we have the sensation that everything is going faster than it really goes.
Yeah,
it has been 2 years since the release of ChatGPT, and many people hasn't used them even for brainstorming things. It doesn't use it at all.
But
so
give it 10 years.
I think we will have time. Humans are slower than technology in this case.
We have time.
So we will have another talk if you come to Barcelona, because I will be absolutely delighted. Many thanks for this chat. I think it has been really interesting. So
no, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
No.